Welcome to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Kentucky attorney Jeff Roberts has over 25 years of experience. He'll provide answers to your questions related to personal injury and automobile accidents, workers' compensation claims, and Social Security disability benefits. Let's join Jeff for this episode. Well, welcome back to episode 6. Jeff actually has a guest in the studio today, and we're real excited today. This is going to be more of a public service announcement. We're going to talk about highway safety and road safety as we get into this. But Jeff, I'm excited that you have this guest, and I'd like you to go ahead and jump in and introduce him.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Yeah, we do have a guest today. I have a friend of mine that's been a friend of mine for a while, Sheriff Steger here in Calloway County. Sheriff Steger, I appreciate you joining me today.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
And I do want to talk about highway safety. You and I both deal with that to some extent. You and your deputies deal with it initially after a wreck and the initial effects of that. I deal with the long-term effects of that here in my private practice. And I know both of us would like to be less busy doing those type of things and to see a lot less car wrecks out there. So I'm hoping that we can give some people some useful information. But if you would, because I think a lot of people know you, but some who are listening may not, can you give us a little bit of your background?
Sure. My name's Sam Steger. I'm the current Callaway County Sheriff. I have been in law enforcement, well, I guess technically you say for about 28 years. I started in 1992 as a dispatcher, and that's part of the law enforcement community there at Murray State. But I got my actual police experience started in 1994 with the Murray Police Department, and spent about 4 years there, and then I moved on to just a very short stint I did at the Callaway County Sheriff's Office under Sheriff Stan Scott, and then I moved on to State Police, Kentucky State Police, where I retired from in 2013. Then I ran successfully for sheriff and have been the sheriff since 2015. So my time with the state police gave me a lot of experience in working, the highway routes and road safety, and I was involved in a lot of highway safety stuff. I got involved in the child care or the child seat safety stuff. I got very involved in it for a while. So I've got some experience there with the highway safety, and would be glad to talk about it, especially here in Callaway County with the progress and roadways that we have here. And one thing I like to do is before this cast is over with, explain to the community what a lot of myths. People have some myths about speed limits and things of that nature. So maybe we can cover some of that.
Certainly we will. And since you've taken over as sheriff, if I understand correctly, you have taken some efforts to improve highway safety and improve the Sheriff's Department's ability to deal with highway safety here in Callaway County. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. That's correct. So, a lot of people don't see the Sheriff's Office as highway safety type people. They see us as warrant servers and court, bailiffs of the court and things of those nature. And that is important, jobs for us. But it's also part of our job to enforce the highway safety laws out in the county. So we cover all the county roads, and along with the state police, here in our community, the main highways that run through our county, 641, 80, the major highways that run there. So we do operate on those as well. So when I did take office in 2015, money is always an issue at the Callaway County Sheriff's Office. Money's tight, because of how we get our funding. We're self-generated. So our paper service and vehicle inspections and things of that nature is how we get our money. So when I came in, we were spending a lot of money on overtime, and so I was looking for avenues to compensate the men, but let them get involved in some activities that would, help out the community, not just coming in and working plain overtime. So through KSP, I was familiar with the highway safety office, and we made contact with them. And since 2015, we've been able to acquire some grant money every year to help out with not only some overtime for the men to put some cash in their pocket, but also to enforce the highway safety laws here in Callaway County. So basically we get roughly between $10,000 and $15,000 a year to enforce the traffic laws here. The guys will come out and work that at their own time, at their own pace, whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it. And basically, different times of the year, the Governor's Highway Safety Office focuses on different aspects of highway safety. So, for a block of time, our focus will be speed. For another block of time, the focus may be seatbelt usage, and then you have driving while impaired, DUI enforcement time. So those blocks are what we focus on during those specific times. I know you've heard the click it or ticket, campaigns like that the Highway Safety's office issues, that seatbelt usage and stuff. So when you hear those, hear those slogans coming out, that's what we're focused on. Tickets for citations for seatbelt usage, just to increase awareness of highway safety, because all those are important aspects of highway safety and keeping our roadways safe.
And I think a lot of people now realize the value of seatbelts and how much they assist if you are unfortunately in a crash in that regard. But you and your deputies see firsthand. Can you try to talk to the listeners about how beneficial it is and how important it is to wear your seatbelt?
Certainly. And one of I had to mention that I did the child safety seats for a while, and like my avenue in that program was I focused on the impact of the body against another object. And an object, well, I guess people don't understand, an object always stays in that motion of the direction that it's going until it's stopped by another object, And when somebody's traveling 50 mile an hour, until you're stopped by that steering wheel, you're going to continue to travel 50 mile an hour. And so people, I hear this all the time. People worry about being trapped inside the car, your seatbelt not coming undone. The odds of that happening are so less likely than you getting in a collision and needing that seatbelt. That there's just a tremendous offset of percentage-wise of that happening. Once in a blue moon will you hear of somebody, maybe getting trapped in a seatbelt or can't get out or whatever. You might hear that, but over my career, I can't think of hardly any time that I have had that happen. So seatbelt usage is critical in a collision because it holds you tight. It holds you against. Now, there again, if you do hear of somebody passing away, dying in a collision with their seatbelt on, they were wearing the seatbelt, but at some point in time, the impact, the speed of the vehicle and the collision, it's unsurvivable anyway, whether you're seatbelted in or not. So when you hear about the rare occasion that somebody does pass away with their seatbelt on, it's probably inevitable, because of the manner of the collision, whatever that might be. An impact from a side impact where somebody, where another vehicle hits somebody like a T-bone, from a side impact, you might not survive that period, whether you have your seatbelt on or not.
Right.
But the majority of the time, the seatbelt is what does save you.
Okay. And I think, at least I hope we're doing a much better job with all the programs that the law enforcement community has been doing from that. I know I'm a little bit older than you are, and growing up, it was not really as preached to the kids and to even to the adults the importance of seatbelt usage. But I think we are doing a much better job, in the law enforcement community certainly taking the lead on making sure that the people are informed about that. And you earlier you mentioned the driving while impaired, the DUIs, and I've heard throughout my life people talk about, well, just stay on the back roads and things, and obviously nobody should ever drive while impaired from that standpoint. But that is something that is that the sheriff's deputies do patrol the back roads looking for people who are doing that. Is that not accurate?
That is accurate. That is our job. Our job is to patrol the county roadways. So we spend a lot of time focusing on, the back roads. Yeah, I remember. I remember that. Yeah, take the back road. The police won't be out there. Yeah. We are out there. We have we host roadblocks, road checkpoints. For DUIs, seatbelts, and things of that nature. So we are out there on the back roads. They are looking for impaired drivers. So yes, that's a big part of what we do, and especially we do it all the time, but especially when when critical times of the year, holidays, we have the 4th of July coming up. We'll be having some extra road checks and things of that nature, to try to focus on getting those people off the roadways because it's so heavily traveled during that time.
Okay. And I understand the purpose behind this, but I hear and I see the Sheriff's Department and state police and other law enforcement communities that will publish on Facebook or in the paper when they're going to have these checks, the roadblocks to check licenses, insurance, and all of that. And nearly always when y'all post it on Facebook, somebody says, "Why are you doing this? Why are you posting this to tell people where it's at?" Can you explain to the listeners why y'all do that?
I get that question quite often. Once we make that that notification to the media, I get that exact question. Why are you telling us where you're going to be? Well, we have to. We have to by law. We have to report twice a year where we are going to host road checks. We do not have to post a time or day or anything like that, but we do. We are required to post, where we are going to be hosting those, and that comes back from some case law, back in the day, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. But I'll just tell you, I don't agree with that. But it's what we're required to do. And yes, we do get that question quite often is, why are you telling us where you're going to be? Because, but you would be surprised how many people still come through there. But there again, like I said, we don't have to notify you the specific day that we're going to do it. But we do have twice a year. I do put that out as to the locations where we are, where we could possibly be.
And, the reason for that, as you mentioned, is the courts have said if you don't post that, then the stop would be considered an illegal stop, and all the evidence gathered would be kicked out. So to make sure that you're getting that person off the street and also that person's getting the punishment effect and the deterrent effect of the criminal penalties, making sure that all that evidence gets to stay in for the prosecution.
Yes, sir. That's correct. Yes.
And we're in the rural community, as you said, and that poses some additional challenges there, especially with farm equipment out on the roadways and all of that. What can we do if we're out on the roadways to make sure that we're being safe for the people on the tractors and combines and the other equipment, and also the ones driving that to make sure that they're being safe for the other people on the roadway?
Yeah, sure. Well, I come from a farming family, so I know all about that. I'm all the time up and down the road in the combine or whatever. So I get both aspects of it, trying to move the equipment down the road, plus trying to enforce any highway safety issues that arise from moving that equipment. Of course, farm equipment this day and time is so much bigger than it was back in the day, and they do take up a lot of the roadway. But it is important that we take our patience. When I talk to somebody about the farm equipment, patience is my word. You just have to be. I know you're trying to get somewhere in a hurry, like we always are, and the combine or the tractor doesn't move but about 25, maybe 30 mile an hour tops. And they do take up a lot of the roadway. So, but you do have to use your patience. Now, most farmers I've seen over the years, they're pretty good about getting over as far to the side of the road as they can, when the opportunity arises. But they are also cautious about not doing it till they get over a hill, and that may be some distance, So always pay attention. I try to tell people, I've actually had somebody call me and say, can you do something about the farm equipment being on the roadways? Well, you can't, but they've got to get from field to field. My advice to you, to the listeners is just be patient. That's their livelihood, and they're just trying to make a living and get to where they need to go in a safe manner. On the flip side of that, I try to encourage the farmers to be respectful to other motorists and not take up the whole roadway for 20 miles. If you've got a line of traffic behind you and you have the opportunity to pull over and get your equipment off the roadway, do that, because likewise those people do have places to go, and I try to encourage them to get their equipment off in the safest manner, as much and as far as off the roadway as they can. So it's we usually work. We probably have a couple every year, every season, I guess. When harvest is in, we just got through or wrapping up the wheat season, and we'll usually work a tractor accident or two during each season, and a lot of times it's because the vehicle that coming up onto the tractor or the combine or whatever it is doesn't realize how slow the tractor's going and how quick they're going to get up on the rear end of it. So that farm equipment, that farm implement is up on them or right in front of them before they can realize it and have time to brake. So the minute you see it, you need to pay attention to how quickly you're coming up on that piece of equipment.
And that brings up, because you mentioned earlier about you wanted to talk about speed limits on county roadways and all of that. And,
certainly.
And that the speed that you're traveling certainly affects how quickly you're coming up on that tractor or any other slow-moving vehicle from that standpoint. But the speed limits,
correct.
Just go ahead and talk a little bit about the speed limits
Sure.
on the county roads.
Probably the most, as far as highway safety goes, probably the most frequent question that I get from my office is, I'll get speeding complaints on the county roadways. Hey, the people are driving way too fast on my roadway, and they probably are. But what people have to understand on the county roads is they're 55 mile an hour, unless they are posted. And in our case, in a county's case, you just can't throw up a speed limit sign and say, all right, now it's 35. That's not how that works. So the county has to adopt a specific roadway if they want to change that speed limit, and then it has to be posted. So we are looking at that right now. I got a magistrate, Paul Reister. He's our District 4 magistrate. He's been doing some speed studies, out in the county, and but you also have to look at the expense of it, because once you declare a roadway a new speed limit, you have to post that. So you're looking at monies for signage and things of that nature. So that's just how the county roads operate. They are 55 mile an hour unless they are otherwise marked. And I'm not familiar with any county roadways that we have adopted here that have changed that. So that's what they are. So when people call me and tell me they're driving way over the speed limit, well, they're probably not driving. Mightn't they be driving too fast for that particular roadway? Is 55 mile an hour maybe too fast for a particular roadway? It could very well be. And they might be driving too fast for the conditions of that roadway, but are they speeding? They're not.
And if there is no posted speed limit, so it's a 55.
That's correct.
There's nothing the sheriff's department can do about somebody running 50 or 55 miles.
And when we do get those complaints, I can't think of a time where I haven't sent a man out there to watch and run traffic and run some radar out there. And 99% of the times, that's what we find is, that roadway probably should be a different speed limit, even if it's in one particular area of that roadway, So the other thing, along with signage and speed limits is, people see the yellow recommendation, signs for speed and stuff, right, going around curves and things of that nature. Those are merely recommendation. That is what they're telling you that you should take that curve at. That's not saying you have to, and that they're speeding if they violate that, that limit, because the speed limit is still 55. We have a common problem down on 641 South with that. But those are just recommendation signs, and so I like to educate people on that, because they think that that changes the speed limit, but it doesn't.
Right. Yeah, it's what's considered the safe speed, but not the actual speed limit.
Not the actual speed. That's correct.
Right. And another thing, especially this time of the year, because we're getting to warm weather now, actually hot weather, depending on what temperature you like around here. and there's a lot more motorcyclists with the economies opening back up from COVID at this point as well, and you're seeing a lot more motorcyclists on the road. Do you make any recommendations for drivers of motor vehicles in regard to keeping an eye out for motorcyclists and vice versa for motorcyclists to help protect themselves when they're riding?
Certainly. I'm not a fan of the no helmet law because I don't believe that the helmet is just as important or more important than the seatbelt. And I shouldn't say more important, but I mean the likelihood of you surviving a motorcycle crash without a helmet is tough. Yeah. And so I encourage motorcyclists to wear their helmet. I know they don't have to, but well, they do in certain circumstances, but for the most part, they don't. But so I do encourage that. And what I encourage motorists to do, and this is what we see the most of, when it comes to a motorcycle collision, most of the time it is a vehicle pulling out from a side road, right in the path of a motorcycle, and it's because they didn't take that split second to take just a little closer look down the roadway. They're looking for a big object and with two headlights or whatever, and they overlook that motorcycle that's coming down the roadway. So I do 2 PSAs there at Froggy every year. I do one for farm equipment and I do one for motorcycles, and that's my gig is the motorists need to stop and take that little extra second just to make sure this time of the year that small object, the motorcycle, is not coming down the roadway, because they're on you like right fast and in a hurry. So that's what I encourage motorists to do. And like I say, the motorcycles are just the same.
And the motorcycle, at least from my perspective, and you may or may not have the same perspective, but because it is smaller, when you see it approaching, I don't think you can judge. I don't think the average motorist, anyway, judges the speed of the motorcycle as well as they do maybe a car coming toward them that they see all year round out on the roadways, and the motorcycle they don't.
I do agree with that. I think the motorcycle is harder to judge the speed of coming at you than a full-size car or a semi or something of that nature. I think the motorcycle, like I said, I think it can be on you a lot quicker than you think it's coming at you, right, because of the size of it. The smaller is harder to depict how fast it is going.
Right. And then the one thing that I wanted to bring up with you, and I see it around here. My daughter is in Louisville now, and I travel up there more than I did before, for sure. And but I see it here and I see it up there as well, is blinkers. And you don't see a lot of new cars that apparently didn't come with blinkers on them, because you don't see them being used a whole lot. Is that an issue that y'all see in law enforcement, and would that make a difference, do you think, on decreasing some of the accidents?
Well, turn signals are definitely a must, but just because somebody is not using their turn signal, right, does not necessarily mean, or even if they are, you do see a turn signal on, does not necessarily mean that they would be at fault if a collision were to occur, because it is still on the other. What we do see is somebody may have their turn signal on, but they've left it on accidentally. So you got a car that pulls out and says, "Oh, well, he was turning. He had his turn signal on," and vice versa. They didn't have their turn signal on, and a collision, occurs because of it. But it's on that other person to make sure that car is or is not turning before that happens. Now, can I see that being a factor? Some. We occasionally might work a collision where a blinker might be a factor, but not very often. Now, people wonder what our most common factor of collisions are around here, and the number one people think is speed. People think that speed is a major factor in collisions here, and it's not.
What
really is? Driver inattention, distraction, distracted driving, whether it's your radio, your eating, the cell phone, whatever it is. There's usually that is the common factor of of a collision. Somebody's not paying attention to what they're doing. So speed is a factor sometimes, but not like people would think it is. So, and let me clarify that. When the roadways become wet, or snow, and people think that speed is a factor, it's actually they're driving too fast for the conditions is what it is. It's the speed of that condition. So we always tell people, raining, slow it down just a little bit. Slow it down, snowing or whatever. Obviously, you want to take your time there. So.
Yeah. Speed can play an impact, though, in the severity of the injuries that a person receives.
Absolutely, certainly, yes. The faster that vehicle is going, the more likely you are to occur, a serious injury, obviously. And we do see that with our speed-related wrecks. So we have a lot, highway-wise, we have a lot going on. We've been pushing for 641 South, to get 4-lane and everything. This community is going to be so thankful that is being done. I know they're starting on a portion of it now, but that portion of highway in our county is the deadliest portion of highway in this county. And we work a ton of wrecks on 641 South. I did a study here, and I don't know exactly what the numbers were, but we have a ton of fatalities, serious injury, collisions, and we have a ton of commercial vehicles that travel from Tennessee up here and vice versa. So it'll be a blessing to get that 4-lane up there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I've represented some families where their loved ones were killed in crashes on that section of the highway, and it is, at least in my experience, it is definitely the most dangerous section of the roadway in Calloway County.
Sure.
From there, you mentioned the distracted driving, and most time people think about texting and driving, which is something nobody should do.
Correct.
Because it does distract you from paying attention to the roadway and everything around you from there. But you also touched on some others, and there's more than just texting and driving in regard to distracted driving.
Messing with your radio, eating while you're driving, just anything that you're doing but focusing on the roadway, that's distracting you, because people don't really understand how quick you can be over that center line. It can happen in a second. You lean over to do something and your body is automatically going to pull to that direction. You just don't realize that, I can hold the steering wheel steady for 1 second, and next thing you know, you're off in the ditch or you've hit somebody head on because you've crossed the center line trying to reach for something, adjust something on the radio. You got an animal in the car, that's not pinned up or tied up where it can't get over in your lap or whatever. Just, things like that. We see that all the time.
Yeah, and that is the number one cause for collisions in your estimation from your experience?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And it seems like that is just increased exponentially since texting has come around.
Correct.
For sure. So
yes, texting's a problem.
Yeah.
Texting and driving, and I know we do it all the time. We have to look at our maps to figure out where we're going. It's all the technology that we have right there at our hand. And people utilize that, but it does distract you. So, I always encourage hands-free. I can say I've got my little headphones right there. That's what I do. I try to do everything hands-free. It talks to me. I can talk to it, and it keeps you off that text messaging and everything. Plus, you can still focus on what you're doing and talk and do what you need to do without using your hands, and you can keep them on the steering wheel.
Yeah. And there's probably no or very, very few messages that are more important than you. Well, no message is more important than you paying attention to the roadway, because you could kill yourself, you could kill someone else on that roadway, and finding out that your friend's going to be 5 minutes late getting to the restaurant after you is not that big of a deal.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else you want to?
I got one other topic that I would like to go over that is prominent here in this community.
Sure.
And it's bicycles.
Okay.
People don't understand. We get complaints on bicycles all the time about them traveling up and down the roadways. Bicycles have the same right of way as a vehicle, and they travel in the same direction, operate under the same fundamentals as stoplights and stop signs. They have to pay due attention to those, and so you might see some out here on the roadway riding in packs or whatever, and you have to give them the right of way, the same right of way you would with a vehicle. And we do have a couple of bicycle collisions that we work, especially this time of the year. You're starting to see them out riding the roadways and stuff. So I just like to warn the public, give those bicyclers the right of way. Be cautious when you're, coming up behind them, and everybody can get where they need to go safely.
And I agree with that. I have, out where I live out in the county, we have several that ride for exercise, and they ride several miles every
Certainly.
week in that regard. And I've seen a lot of folks go past them, pass by them on the roadway and not give them a foot of distance between
That's
them
right.
and the motors and the bicyclist.
Correct.
And that's just extremely dangerous for everybody.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Sheriff Steger, I appreciate your being here with us today, and I hope the listeners have learned a lot of valuable information. Thank you.
Certainly. Appreciate you having me.
Well, friends, that's a wrap for episode 6. We appreciate you taking the time to listen. Hopefully, again, you found some valuable and helpful information today. If you'd like to find out more about Jeff's podcast, feel free to visit jeffrobertslaw.com. There is a podcast page, and you can also find this out on Apple iTunes, which is now Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and various other podcast directories. Thanks again for your time. We'll be back in about 2 weeks. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Jeff will return in 2 weeks. Until then, he invites you to visit jeffrobertslaw.com and follow his firm on Facebook. At the Roberts Law Office, you'll find a history of small town service and big city results.